Welcome to the channel where we decode the Sigma male archetype and its impact on modern social dynamics. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating psychological phenomenon: why women initially respond negatively to Sigma males before that. Resistance often transforms into powerful attraction. As we explore this complex dynamic, you'll gain insights that could transform your understanding of intersexual relationships and perhaps even your own social positioning. If you find value in decoding these subtle yet powerful social mechanics, make sure to subscribe to Official Sigma Male. We're building a community of independent thinkers who understand that true power comes from within, not from external validation. Now let's break down the 9 key reasons behind this fascinating phenomenon. Strategic solitude. The Sigma male's deliberate isolation confuses women initially. Unlike alpha males who command attention in social settings, or beta males who constantly seek approval, Sigmas create purposeful distance. This strategic solitude isn't about shyness or social anxiety. It's a calculated approach to preserve energy and maintain independence. Women have evolved to read social cues and hierarchies instinctively. When they encounter a man who voluntarily removes himself from these structures, it creates cognitive dissonance. Most men position themselves within the social matrix, competing for status and female attention. The Sigma's refusal to play this game triggers uncertainty. Consider the scenario of a high-value man at a social gathering who engages minimally, speaks only when necessary, and leaves early without seeking validation. Women notice this behavior pattern and often misinterpret it as arrogance or social awkwardness. What they don't immediately recognize is that the Sigma operates on a different frequency. His validation comes from within, not from external sources. This self-contained energy system violates social expectations. Women initially interpret this as a rejection of themselves personally, or as a sign that something is wrong with the man. They've been conditioned to expect men to pursue, to seek their approval, to demonstrate value through social positioning. The Sigma does none of these things, creating an uncomfortable mystery. A practical example: when James attends industry networking events, he doesn't attempt to dominate conversations or collect business cards frantically. He speaks meaningfully, with a few key contacts, and leaves when he's accomplished his objectives. Female colleagues often initially describe him as strange or standoffish, only later recognizing his efficiency and purposefulness. This strategic solitude serves the Sigma well. It conserves energy, maintains independence, and ultimately creates intrigue. But the path to understanding this dynamic isn't immediate for most women, who must first overcome their initial negative reaction to a man who doesn't seek their validation. The challenge to female hypergamy. Female hypergamy. The tendency to seek partners of equal or higher social status meets a unique challenge in the Sigma male. Unlike conventional high-status men who display their value through obvious social markers, the Sigma's worth isn't immediately apparent in group settings. This creates a fascinating dilemma for women's evolved mate selection mechanisms. They sense high value in the Sigma through his confidence and self-containment, yet cannot easily categorize him within traditional hierarchical structures. Is he high status? Is he an outsider? This ambiguity triggers initial suspicion and even hostility. Consider how women typically evaluate male status: social connections, how others respond to him, material displays of success, and position within male hierarchies. The Sigma male often minimizes or completely disregards these traditional signals, creating an evaluation problem for women who rely on these metrics. John, a successful independent consultant, attends corporate events in simple, quality clothing rather than status symbols. He knows CEOs and executives, but doesn't name drop. Women often initially dismiss him until they gradually discover his connections, capabilities, and resources, all purposefully understated. This understated power directly challenges the female hypergamy mechanism. Women have evolved sophisticated detection systems for male status and resource potential, but the Sigma male's unconventional approach to demonstrating value bypasses these systems, creating initial friction before understanding can develop. The Sigma's refusal to advertise his value or compete in obvious status games frustrates women's ability to quickly categorize him. This frustration often manifests as dismissal or dislike until they discover his true capabilities through extended observation or direct interaction. 3. Unpredictable nature. Women are naturally drawn to men whose behavior they can anticipate and interpret. It's an evolutionary safety mechanism. The Sigma male, with his independent decision-making and disregard for social expectations, presents as fundamentally unpredictable, triggering caution and suspicion. Unlike the alpha who consistently pursues leadership or the beta who reliably seeks approval, the Sigma's actions stem from internal principles rather than external expectations. This creates an unsettling dynamic for women who initially cannot anticipate his responses or behaviors. This unpredictability extends to emotional reactions. While most men display predictable emotional patterns in response to female approval or rejection, the Sigma remains emotionally consistent regardless of external validation. When a woman's approval doesn't visibly affect a man's emotional state, it challenges her sense of influence and creates uncertainty. Michael demonstrates this when he cancels social plans to work on a personal project without concern for how this might affect his social standing. Women in his circle initially interpret this as unreliability, only later recognizing it as unwavering commitment to personal priorities, a trait that eventually becomes attractive after initial resistance. The Sigma's unpredictability extends to relationship progression as well. He doesn't follow conventional dating scripts or timelines, instead advancing relationships according to his own assessment and timeline. This violation of social norms around courtship creates initial friction before potentially being recognized as authentic individualism. While most men can be manipulated through their desire for female validation, the Sigma's immunity to this influence initially registers as threatening before being recognized as an unusual form of integrity. His actions, driven by internal rather than external motivations, create a learning curve for women accustomed to more predictable male behavior patterns. Emotional self-sufficiency. The Sigma male's emotional independence presents perhaps the most direct challenge to conventional relationship dynamics. While most men openly or subtly seek emotional support and validation from women, the Sigma has developed robust internal emotional resources that make him notably self-sufficient. This emotional autonomy initially reads as coldness or emotional unavailability to women who expect men to demonstrate need. When a man requires neither emotional caretaking nor validation, women question both his capacity for connection and their own value in the dynamic. Consider David, who processes personal setbacks privately before emerging with solutions rather than seeking external comfort. Women in his life initially perceive this as emotional shutting down, only later recognizing it as emotional self-regulation and strength. This self-sufficiency disrupts the traditional exchange where emotional support flows from woman to man in return for other forms of provision. When the Sigma doesn't participate in this exchange, women initially feel their traditional value proposition is being rejected, creating resistance before potential appreciation for this unusual emotional stability can develop. The sigma's reduced emotional reactivity extends to conflict as well. When a woman's emotional escalation doesn't trigger complementary emotional intensity from the sigma, it creates frustration before potentially being recognized as emotional leadership. Ultimately, the sigma's emotional self-containment, initially read as distant or cold, represents one of his most powerful attributes, and one that women often come to value deeply after initial resistance to its unfamiliar presentation. Rejection of social validation. Society operates on complex systems of validation and approval. Most people, regardless of gender, orient their behaviors around receiving positive social feedback. The sigma male's conspicuous disregard for social validation and approval disrupts this fundamental social contract. When a man doesn't adjust his behavior to earn female approval or social acceptance, it creates cognitive dissonance for observers. Is he unaware of social expectations? Does he not value connection? The truth that he consciously chooses authentic expression over conformity often takes time for women to recognize and appreciate. Alex demonstrates this when he expresses unpopular opinions without hesitation or presents unusual ideas without seeking validation. Women initially label him as socially tone-deaf before potentially recognizing his intellectual independence as a form of integrity. This rejection of social validation extends to the sigma's appearance and self-presentation. While he may be well-groomed and appropriately dressed, his choices reflect personal preference rather than current trends or status displays. This authenticity initially reads as obliviousness to social cues before potentially being recognized as confident self-acceptance. Perhaps most challenging is the sigma's comfort with being misunderstood or temporarily disliked. While most men will quickly adjust behavior when receiving negative social feedback, particularly from attractive women, the sigma's willingness to be temporarily misunderstood creates initial friction before potentially being recognized as unshakable. Self-confidence. This independence from external validation disrupts women's ability to influence behavior through approval or disapproval, a dynamic they've experienced with most men. Before appreciating this as strength of character, women often experience it as stubborn difficulty or social incompetence. The confidence paradox. The sigma male embodies a paradoxical form of confidence that initially confuses women. Unlike the demonstrative, externally oriented confidence of the alpha male, who commands rooms and seeks leadership positions, the sigma's confidence is quiet, unassuming, yet unmistakably solid. This understated confidence doesn't seek to prove itself through conventional status displays or competitive behaviors. Instead, it manifests as comfort with silence, willingness to stand alone, and disinterest in proving value to others. For women accustomed to evaluating male confidence through assertions of dominance or social proof, this quiet self-assurance initially reads as something else entirely. Thomas exemplifies this when he remains relaxed and composed during group disagreements, neither forcing his opinion nor backing down, but simply maintaining his position without emotional investment in others' agreement. Women often initially interpret this as lack of passion or conviction before recognizing it as unshakable inner certainty. The sigma's confidence paradox extends to his approach to rejection. While most men either avoid rejection risk or react strongly to rejection, the sigma accepts it as natural and continues unaffected. This response pattern disrupts women's experience of their rejection power having predictable effects on male behavior. Perhaps most confusingly, the sigma doesn't attempt to demonstrate higher value through common tactics like name-dropping, status signaling, or dominating conversations. His confidence doesn't require external validation or comparative superiority, instead stemming from self-knowledge and internal congruence. This paradoxical confidence, powerful yet understated, certain yet non-dominating, creates initial misreadings before potentially being recognized as a uniquely attractive form of male self-assurance that doesn't require external proof or validation. Value systems collision. At its core, the initial friction between women and Sigma males stems from fundamentally different value systems. While social hierarchies, group belonging, and relational connections typically form the foundation of female value structures, the Sigma prioritizes independence, authenticity, and self-determined purpose above all else. This value system difference creates a type of cultural clash where each party initially interprets the other's behaviors through their own values lens, resulting in misunderstanding and negative evaluation. Women typically value social intelligence, community standing, and relational skill, areas where the Sigma often appears deliberately deficient due to his different priorities. Meanwhile, the Sigma values personal freedom, internal congruence, and purposeful solitude, qualities that initially register as antisocial or emotionally unavailable from a conventional female perspective. Ryan demonstrates this when he declines social invitations to focus on personal projects without elaborate explanations or apparent concern for how this affects his social capital. Women initially interpret this as selfish or antisocial before potentially recognizing it as focused dedication to personal values. This collision extends to communication styles as well. The Sigma's direct, minimal communication prioritizes accuracy and efficiency over social harmony or relationship maintenance, values that often conflict with female communication priorities focusing on connection and relationship dynamics. Before mutual understanding can develop, this fundamental value difference creates friction as each party essentially speaks a different social language and operates from different foundational assumptions about what matters in human interaction and life purpose. Threatening the female selection process. The female mate selection process relies on accurate assessment of male value, status, and character. The Sigma male, by operating outside conventional status structures and withholding typical behavioral cues, fundamentally disrupts this assessment. Capability. Women have evolved sophisticated mechanisms for evaluating male fitness across multiple dimensions: social status, resource acquisition potential, genetic quality, and commitment likelihood. The Sigma male's unconventional presentation of value in each area creates significant challenges for this evolutionary assessment system. Unlike men, who clearly signal their status position and availability through predictable behaviors, the Sigma requires extended observation to accurately evaluate. This requirement for additional investment before assessment can occur creates initial resistance from women who must allocate their attention efficiently. Mark illustrates this dynamic when his quiet competence and understated accomplishments fly under the radar at professional events, while less capable but more vocal men receive immediate female attention. Women initially overlook him before gradually discovering his substantial value through direct experience rather than social signaling. The Sigma also threatens female selection by removing predictable influence points from the equation. Most men can be influenced through their desire for female approval, creating comfortable control points in relationship dynamics. The Sigma's immunity to this influence mechanism disrupts traditional female selection power. Before appreciation can develop, this disruption to established selection mechanisms creates frustration and even hostility as women encounter a man who must be evaluated through different, often more time-intensive means than those that work efficiently with most men. From Hatred to fascination, the journey from initial dislike to powerful attraction follows a predictable pattern when women encounter genuine Sigma males. This transformation occurs through several key realizations that fundamentally shift perception from negative to intensely positive. First comes the recognition of authenticity. After sufficient observation, women realize the Sigma's behavior isn't an act or social incompetence, but a genuine expression of uncommon internal congruence. In a world of social performers, this authenticity eventually registers as exceptionally rare and valuable. Next develops an appreciation for emotional stability. The Sigma's consistent emotional self-regulation, initially perceived as coldness, gradually reveals itself as a deeply attractive form of masculine strength, particularly in contrast to emotionally reactive men who initially seem more engaged and available. The third shift occurs in understanding true confidence. As women observe the Sigma's consistent behavior across contexts, neither dominating nor submitting based on social pressure, they recognize a form of confidence more substantial than the performative dominance displays that initially attract attention. Nathan demonstrates this transformation when a woman who initially described him as arrogant and weird later pursues him. After 6 months of workplace observation, revealed his quiet competence, consistent character, and hidden depths, qualities that emerge naturally over time rather than being advertised up front. This preference inversion often culminates in intense attraction precisely because the qualities initially misread as negative are eventually recognized as superior versions of male attributes women universally value: confidence without arrogance, strength without domination, competence without boasting, and purpose beyond social validation. The final and most powerful shift occurs when women recognize that earning the genuine interest and respect of a Sigma male represents a unique form of validation, one based on authentic appreciation rather than social calculation or biological programming. As we've explored these 9 dynamics, a pattern emerges. What women initially misinterpret as negative in Sigma, males often represents higher-order expressions of the very qualities they ultimately seek in men. The journey from initial resistance to powerful attraction follows a natural progression as understanding deepens. For Sigma males watching this, take comfort in knowing that initial negative reactions often transform dramatically over time. Your path doesn't require changing your nature, but rather finding those capable of recognizing and valuing your authentic strengths. For women, this exploration offers insight into why your initial reactions to certain men might deserve reconsideration. The quiet, self-contained man you initially dismissed might possess depth and strength far beyond those who immediately seek your approval. If you found value in these insights, subscribe to Official Sigma Male for more content that explores these profound dynamics from a perspective you won't find in mainstream discussions. We're building a community of independent thinkers who understand that true power comes from within. Hit subscribe, activate the notification bell, and join us as we continue decoding the subtle yet powerful forces that shape our social world.